people all over America is that everybody is doing their own thing, caught up in a Eurocentric value of rugged individualism, having forgotten that it takes a village to raise a child. There is no power here, brothers and sisters. There is no power here. Power is most effective concentrated. You can take a 55-gallon drum of water, spill it over, it will disperse, find its own level, and eventually evaporate. You can take that same 55-gallon drum of water, put it under pressure, put a lid on it, put a hose in it, put a nozzle on the end of that hose, and it can cut concrete. There is no power with us being disconnected. See, there's nothing wrong with dispersion. I live in Cleveland, you live in Atlanta. We have folk in the Caribbean, we have folk in Africa. That's dispersion. That's okay, but we do not have to be disconnected. We are a disconnected people. We are powerless in disconnection. This is where all the power is. You see? This is where all the power is. Whether you are at the center of your own network or part of someone else's network, to our communities and taking and destroying at will.
All right, George.
Try to open up the Booker T. Washington delicatessen in Chinatown and see what happens. So we must connect. We must connect the dots. That must be the movement for our people in the 21st century. We need a lot of us doing a little instead of a few of us doing a lot. We need to get together to get ahead. That is why we must network.
All right, everyone, welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So we are PCIF Community Development, aka
Cooperative.
Pamoja Community Fund. We are here basically to, sorry, I'm kind of distracted because of the audio, but we're here to, we're an organization that's based on collective partnerships within the Black community. That's what Pamoja means. Pamoja means togetherness. Pamoja Community Investment Fund is just what the name stipulates. It is a cooperative / corporation that was put together to what is it? To basically to establish the SUSU, but in a more, or partner in a more corporate friendly way. So the purpose of our organization is to bring people of African descent together, to pool our resources together, to build and fund, or fund and build our own community, to invest together as a united group for the financial development and advancement of our people in our communities. So in any way and in every way that we can, we want to be able to build partnerships within the Black community together, united for the purpose of financial advancement, and also for the protection, for the collaboration, for the advancement of our community and its members. We have various projects right now going on. One that is still under consideration. We've been negotiating this project for a while, which is a Port Colborne project. That's where we started. We also have projects that we're working on within the continent of Africa, both in Ghana and Nigeria. And we're also looking at other smaller projects to be considered in Ontario as well. If you'd like to get involved in what we're doing, if you'd like to be a part of Pomoja, whether it is through, if you're someone who has really good experience or experience in this area, really good advice for us, you want to come on board to be a guide for us, we would love you to reach out. If you want to become a member, we also have a membership. There's a membership fee of $9.99 per month. You can also reach out to that to us for more information on that. If you have expertise in whether it's a trade or legal advice that you can offer us, we would love to hear from you. And you can reach out to us at info@pcif.ca. And also read more about us and what we're about on www.pcif.ca as well. So that's us in a nutshell. We're still waiting for our
I don't
speaker.
see her online. I've just messaged her, but
okay.
I didn't get a response, so I'm trying again.
Okay, no problem. So tonight's we have various topics every month. At the end of the month, every last Sunday, we pick different topics that are relative to what we're doing and also that are beneficial to the community. We've done Afrocentric health. We've done home ownership and building towards home ownership. Tonight we're going to be talking about building cooperatives and cooperative partnerships with renowned Mrs. Ginelle Skerritt. So we'll be hearing from her. She has a vast list of expertise and credentials. One being, of course, a wife, a mother. She is actually the first Black CEO of the Children's Aid Society. She's an author. Her and her husband and different community members have joined together to found Adinkra Farms, which is an actual farm just outside of, I think it's an hour and a half outside of Toronto, where they host families, weddings, etc., specifically in the Black community. And they really push an awareness of your African self and the whole, caring for the whole individual in an Afrocentric, from an Afrocentric perspective and foundation. So are there any questions we can get? Some questions for those of you who are new or even not.
No, it's just supposed to be for members, right? Well,
no, it's not. We've invited, we opened it up to everyone.
So if you have any questions, you can feel free to raise your hand and ask your questions.
Ginelle.
Any questions, about anything you want to know? Any questions at all? All questions are welcome. No questions?
Okay, so Ginelle's running just a bit late. So we can. Oh, somebody put something in the chat.
Okay, check.
She'll be on soon. Thank you, Yvonne. Oh, good evening, Chigozie.
Good evening. Questions. Brother P, questions.
Questions, comments. How is Canada?
Yvonne,
we're here in Nigeria.
How is Canada?
Yvonne is in Ghana. If you guys have any questions about that, we would be happy to answer you.
about some projects that we're currently working on too. If you have any questions, feel free.
Okay, Chigozie, go ahead.
Chigozie, I knew Chigozie wouldn't disappoint
I know.
me. I knew it. Okay, Chigozie.
Hi. Are you guys still in Nigeria?
Yes, we are.
We are still in Nigeria.
Oh my God. I'm jealous.
Leave. We don't want to leave.
Okay, I'm just curious to know from the last time what has happened with Colburn, and if the plan B is now plan A. I'm just curious to know, I need to know that something's happening. Like, I want to know what's going on.
So, so far, we got our deposit back. So everything is intact. We've deposited the money in the account. So we have our money back. The land is still available. I mean, I checked with Folu yesterday. The land is still available, so we can still go in. If we want to go ahead with the land, we can still go in with another offer. And we have about, I'll say 5 different options on the table at the moment. So we're just trying to compile everything and, present it to you all on, on Sunday, I believe. Next Sunday, is it?
Yeah, next Sunday. Specifically, we'll start with the members.
With the members, on Sunday. So we'll go over the options that we have on the table, and then we can decide the ones that we want to proceed with. But we have options on the table at the moment.
Okay, I just want to know, did you ever get to know, to get more information as to the implication of the
archaeological
artifact that was found on the site that led to this distortion in the plan?
Yeah, so we asked the city. We asked the city, but the city basically said, in order for them to continue to investigate, because they don't have any information on it, we basically have to, engage them and pay. So so we have to pay because they have to assign people to to go on the land and so on. Everything pretty much costs money. So that's where we are at the moment. So we want to discuss all that with our members on Monday, you included, on Sunday, sorry, and then we'll decide if it's worth it to to take the risk.
If it's a significant amount of money, then but if it's not a significant amount of money, and it could be deemed to be, administrative costs that will be classified as due diligence on our part, then it makes sense to do. But if it's a huge amount of money that's a chunk of the investable funds, then perhaps it may not be possible. But I want to believe that if anybody wants to do due diligence on a project, there's some percentage of funding that goes to carrying out due diligence to satisfy one's concerns.
Absolutely, you're right. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Ginelle, hello.
Hello. So sorry about that.
Oh no, that's okay. That's okay. We're glad you could make it. Welcome. I just did a short introduction of who you are, but there's so much more I can say from even the short research that I did. I was like, wow, how am I going to do this? The list would be so long. But welcome. Thank you so much for being here. We want to hear from you about collective economics or cooperative economics. But first, I'd like you to give us a little bit of information, one of Adinkra Farms, because I think we should all get out there if we can, how that started, and then how I guess, first of all, how you got into community development, because you're deep in,
Deep in. Well, just to let you know, today it has been a very busy day on the farm. So it started with a crew coming in this morning to put the roof on a construction project that has been ongoing since August. And we had a second crew come in to help us put together some prefab buildings that we have fundraised for from community, and that's part of the collective economic vision. And we are, and so that project also started today. And then we had a father doing a visit with his kids here on the farm that was a supervised visit. And currently we have two community members staying with us who are temporarily unhoused. So there's an awful lot going on. And so I was just reorganizing the kitchen when I got the call to say that I was late. So I do apologize, but let me tell you a little bit more about the context. So what we have here is a cooperative venture where my husband and I invested in the farm. It's a 42-acre property in New Lowell, Ontario, which is situated between Barrie and Wasaga Beach. And it's part of a vision that actually started in the 70s when some of the people who were new immigrants to Canada from the Caribbean joined in an organization called INICAM that was sponsored by the federal government in downtown Toronto. And so at that time, it was a kind of there's a bit of nostalgia attached to how people of African descent used to greet each other at that time, because there were so few that there were stories, and I remember being a little girl, and if we saw another Black person anywhere in the city, it would be crossing the street. Where are you from? How long you here? What you doing Saturday? You know. And it was instant friendship and connection and looking for and comparing recipes and, you know, communing together. So in that context, there was a reggae band formed, and it was a reggae band not only of people from Jamaica, but Guyana, Jamaica, Trinidad, all over. And it was called Truths and Rights. And my husband was a member of that band. And together they had a vision, which was to create in relation to the struggle of our people. And so that motto has stayed with my husband, with members of the band. And I was, of course, too young at the time to be involved with that. However, I also grew with a tradition of being a very, I would say it's a very African tradition. But of course, because of the transatlantic Ma'afa, we are a little bit more separated from the direct. So we have to put some effort into understanding how much retention there has been about who we truly are and how we express that as people of African descent. And so I realized that my growing up, when I visited the continent, I actually realized that my growing up was very much an African, Caribbean, Canadian experience and nothing else. Because we always had people staying at our home. We always had a sense of how to be welcoming to people. And there was always a sense of connection to other people of African descent. So that combined, when we decided to move out here, it was really for a job that my husband was doing. And I was very adamant that we choose a home that gave us the space to do some of the things that we've always dreamed about. And so was he. And so we found this beautiful gem and called it Adinkra Farm after the Adinkra symbol, because I had been deeply studying the Akan culture myself and reconnecting to that. My husband knows that his heritage is Ghanaian because his family name, and there are other things about his upbringing that I won't get into in terms of the traditions that his grandfather told him about, that he knows that his heritage is Ghanaian. Plus, whenever he's a drummer, and whenever he's in the community, people start talking to him in Twi, and he's like, no, I only know English. And they're like, what do you mean? You look just like, So very much there. Anyway, a long way to say that we came about this collective vision and this community development vision, quite honestly, and decided to, so I'll fast forward to, we've been here for 12 years. And last year, we would have been celebrating our 10th anniversary, but then COVID came about, so everything got kind of delayed. And so all of the 10th anniversary sort of activity was kind of done in the 11th year. And we started a fundraising campaign, which really was about the community putting together its resources to put up some buildings on the property. We run camps, retreats, we do organizational development. As I suggested to you, we also allow people who need a place to stay with us and heal and connect with the land and so on. So I've talked a lot in answer to your question, and I'm sure you have more, so I'll stop there. Mm-hmm.
So in terms of, and thank you for sharing that. That was great because it puts everything into a really good into context for us. In terms of how you started, so I know you had a vision, you and your husband, but how did you get that vision out to the community now? So you start with your own vision and then you need to now kind of inject that into other people, or did you look for other people who shared the same vision? How did that aspect of it work?
Well, even when we had our home in Toronto, we host an annual Kwanzaa on the 28th of December, and we also started the camps as a cooperative between parents when we were in Toronto. So it wasn't a particular decision. We didn't have to call community together. When, we've been part of community organizations group. I've been myself, I came into it as an activist of sorts, as an activist of sorts in terms of protesting the shootings of Black youth and adults by police, for example. I wasn't here for the ROM protest because I was away at school, but all of that type of thing I was connected to, tuned into. We protested around anti-apartheid and so on. So we were really connected with people in the community already. And so when the farm came about, a lot of people, well, first of all, they questioned, why are you moving up there with the rednecks and racist people and ain't no Black people? And for a while, I felt that way too. I felt like, ooh, what are we doing? A little bit hesitant about it. But I quickly discovered the history of this area, that we are actually on land that was originally Black settlement. From Collingwood through to Oro, Ontario, the Black Empire Loyalists were settlers here and were responsible for building a lot of the buildings here in Simcoe County. They were built by the Davenport family, and that was a Black family. And there were, it wasn't just escaped people who were enslaved through the Underground Railroad, but there were settlers here who had fought on the side of the British in the War of 1812. And this is one of the only places in Canada, I think it is the only place in Canada, and the only time in history that Black people were actually awarded land by the federal government as a result of their loyalty to the British land. Anyway, so I started walking into the grocery store with my head held high and thinking, what you doing in my territory? As opposed to, previously feeling like, I'm in a white area. And it's definitely not. So we met Elder Janie Cooper, who carries a lot of that history and speaks it. And we got involved with the African History and African Heritage Month activities in Barrie, the closest bigger city to us. We live in our town is 500 people, so we kind of have to connect outside. And then as Angus, which is really close to us, started to develop, we saw more and more Black families. So eventually, the community around here started coming to us, right? And then people traveled up from Toronto. I remember when we were hosting our first Kwanzaa, we thought, we probably might get 20 people. The place was packed, even in the winter. People come up, and every year people come up to celebrate. They look forward to coming up for that. They come up to the camp, and so we haven't had to. I really don't advertise what we do here at Adinka Farm. Yeah, we also get calls from parents saying, "Look, my child is in a little bit of a situation here, and I just need them to be in a safe place. Could they come and stay with you?" And we've had a few escape attempts because you can only get off the farm in a car. And I remember, I'll tell you one little cute little story. It was a 14-year-old boy that came to stay with us, and he had been coming to camp, and he always loved coming up here. But now he was coming, and he couldn't leave without permission from his mom. And so he told us upside down how evil we were. And one day he decided that he was going to walk to Toronto. And it's an hour and a half drive, right? So he had his iPhone, and I was following in my van. And actually, I was so happy that the iPhone gave him the wrong directions. And he got to the end of our street, which it's 1 kilometer from our house to the end of our street, and mosquitoes, everything. And I'm in the car saying, "Come in the car, come in." And he's like, "Nope, he's walking to Toronto." And he was bigger than me. I can't, wrestle him into the car. And I wasn't going to do that anyway. So we get to the end of the street, and he makes a right turn. He should have turned left, because then he would have been in town within 20 minutes, right? And then from there, he could, connect to transportation and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, he turned right, and I was like, yes, thank God, And so I cajoled him to get back in the car and so on. But anyway, there've been others who have come, and they've had escape attempts as well. I call them escape attempts, but we're not holding them down or anything. It's just, we won't let you leave without your parents' permission, right? And they get good food and excellent treatment, lots of hugs if they want them. No
I think
TV.
that's beautiful. Yeah, no, that's good too. Real connections made then, right? But I think that's beautiful. And I think one of the things that I will stress that you communicated was building community even outside of the project. And I think that's something that we can definitely take within our group, as a good advice for us to implement, building those relationships as well. For Pamoja, we we're in a unique position because we want to, because we are a corporate organization, so we want to also focus on investments. And we want our members to be able to make a return on their investments. But we also come from the root of what we're doing, which is community development, building a renewed, connected Black identity within people from Ontario, within the Canadian diaspora. So sometimes that can be a challenge. Can you advise us, how do you still make money, but then not make money be the heartbeat of what you're doing? You know what I mean?
That last thing that you said is key. And so I'll say that our strategy, because our community is torn apart by colonialism and by the process of the trauma that came about due to the process of enslavement and the recovery from that, there is a lack of trust in general, and especially around money. And we can all tell stories. We all know someone who took the money and ran, from organizations or from personal loans and deals and so on, even within our own families. Because, I don't know why, but I imagine because the thing that we haven't had, we crave, right? We want that and so on. But our philosophy is strategically not about money. Money is only a tool to get us to the most important thing, which is the connection and the relationship that we have with each other, being truthful and authentic and supportive and, just full of love and all of the things that we want. So our investment philosophy, because I did launch a campaign to raise investors, not donations, investors in the Cabin Builds project. And the philosophy there was, my husband said in a joke, when I told him, I said, no, I'm not interested in people's money alone. If people become investors in the project, there also has to be a sweat equity piece. We want them to be here. So it's not, if you just want to invest money, go and look at the stock market, go somewhere else. Maybe there's a Black business that you can support, but that's not this project. Because equally important to us, and which is why I also run a susu, right? And the susu, we had something like 8 rounds going at the same time, right? I actually have a small one going right now, and I think we're at 6 rounds rotating. Of 6 groups, different groups of people, rotating, and I'm managing those pieces. The important thing about that is that we are building a relationship with each other around money without anxiety. As a matter of fact, if people come into the susu and they have a negative kind of thing, I talk to them. We talk about it. And because sometimes, people forget to make their payment or something happens like that. No, we have to deal with each other with respect and with the expectation that you aren't trying to do anything to me. You know what I mean? If there's respect and there's love and there's appreciation. So equally as important as building the financial is building that relationship.
Yeah.
And so that's an important part of it. The sweat equity is an important part. And we haven't rushed. We haven't rushed because, when we first came, people, you could do a business like this, you could do a business like that. But money is not the motivation because, I've learned that money comes and money goes, right? But people, once we have good relationship with people, that is priceless, literally priceless. So that's what we're trying to cultivate more than the money. And you know what? The money does follow that. The money follows that. But to me, being in good relationship with people is the most important thing, right? And so the part of the vision is really sharing that philosophy. And, I've heard this term before, re-Africanizing ourselves.
Yes. Expound on that just a little bit. And then I'll open up for anyone else who has questions. But I love that, what you just said, the re-Africanization of ourselves.
That's right. Because when you look at whether you're an African from the continent, from the many different countries, the many different, most of them, I think there's only one nation that hasn't been colonized, right? So you're still experiencing that. And even if your nation hasn't been colonized, if you're participating in the world economy, you're dealing with colonization, right? And if you're on the African continent, you're dealing with the exploitation of your resources, your people, your land, everything by foreign interests, right? Whether they've taken your spiritual self, they've taken they've taken our collective spiritual sense, our collective economic, aspirations. I'm telling you, if you listen to the music, everybody wants to have Gucci and Versace and a Lamborghini and a BMW or a Mercedes-Benz or a Peugeot. I mean, all these things are European companies that are going to make money off of your dollar. So I have a vision. The Africanization is about quality African products made by African people, sold in an African commerce arrangement, that on our business principles, and not on the idea of grow, take. No. So that's re-Africanization, right?
Yeah, I love that. Honestly, so far, I've been listening, and very powerful. Everything that you've shared so far, really powerful. But one thing you mentioned that stood out to me, in addition to, changing our mindset and so on, is you mentioned susu. Like it's something that you're doing currently. But I know from talking to accountants and financial experts, they say it's illegal. Don't even do it. You get in trouble with the law. Like you mentioned, boy, it's like a colonial system, right? So if us being a Canadian company, how can we do this in such a way that we don't get in trouble with the law, for instance? How can we legalize it? Yeah.
So firstly, susu, a susu partner, kitty, box, guild, these things are not illegal at all. What's illegal is pyramids, right?
Okay.
Where, that's completely different. The two things are different. Now I know there has been a pyramid that I saw that was being advertised as a susu and talking about the long tradition, African tradition of susu and so on. They didn't know what they were talking about, and it was not anything like a susu. Susu is very simple. It's a savings vehicle, right? It's more, but more than that. Okay, and that's in the simplest terms. More than that, it is a community building vehicle. It is built on trust and relationships, and if you get an early hand, it's like a loan from your community, right? And if you get a late hand, you may take a late hand for strategic reasons. So I've taken both. I take a early hand if I'm thinking, oh, you know what, I want to buy something, I want to save something, I want to invest in something, right? Whether it's taking advantage of RRSPs, starting an RESP for my sons, looking to get the down payment for a house. I can tell you, my mom never earned a really high salary, worked 3 different jobs, and without Susu, we wouldn't have lived in a house. That's how the women collectively got together and put together. And you know what? It's not a selfish thing, because they loaned each other the hands that they were collecting, and one by one they bought their houses. So without getting into all of it, I can tell you that Susu is a tried and true tradition, a structure. It's not about making money. You don't go into it to, make dividends on your investments or anything like that. You go into it because it is a way that the community supports each other. And I can tell you, I'm in a very small one now, which is $25 a week, with a group of women who decided that here's what we're going to do. We're going to have a susu that's $25 a week for each of us. We're going to contribute to it for 2 years straight and not take any out. One woman is the banker keeping all of that money. Yeah. And then when we amass the money that we have, we're going to make a decision as to what we're going to invest in together. So we're talking to people about what to invest and so on. It might be land. It might be each other, the businesses, whatever it is. But we'll have a lump sum of money that we put together collectively, and we're going to think about. So there are so many ways that we can, if we use our creative minds, think about how to use the Susu vehicle, that traditional vehicle. One last thing I'll say is that my husband was a single dad when I met him. He had been divorced and was raising 3 children pretty much on his own. And he joined the Susu that was run by a woman who came to Canada as a domestic and worked at the Royal York Hotel as a maid. And he would go to her. So this is a different way that the Susu was run. He would go to her in August and say, I need to get, school things for the children and so on. And she would say, okay, hold on. She would make a few calls. And the women who were in the group would say, it's okay, you could give my hand to that father. And then he would pay it back over the time. So it wasn't run exactly like she would pool the money and negotiate the decisions as to what are the priorities in her community of people. That's another way that it can be done. And it doesn't matter how much you put in at that point. So he wasn't, it's not set amounts. Like in mine, it's $100 every 2 weeks and you get $1,000 after 20 weeks and that's it. And everybody gets one, their hand and it rotates. It's a rotating savings and credit association. That's the academic name for it. Right. But there are other ways to run it, which are a little bit different. Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
I
really love that. And it's something that I've been, thinking about myself. I floated the idea to some of the board members as well when we discussed it. Because one of the challenges we have as an organization is, number one, we don't have a lot of money. Right? If we want to invest, even as a people, individually we have money, but collectively we don't have enough. Right? That's one of the reasons why the gap between other ethnicity and the Black group is wide, right? Because they have the resources. I mean, it's their system anyways. So they know how to, maneuver or beat it, for instance. But for us, we don't work together. So we don't really put our money together to do big projects. So I was floating this idea to my board members for us to, as a co-op, we have membership dues, right? So I was saying a portion of the membership dues can go towards some sort of like a Susu savings plan that we can let it accumulate. And after we hit a certain threshold, we can use that for a project, right? Which would then, give back, like, earn some sort of dividends or like a return on investment to our members. So we're discussing that idea, and I said, let's see how, but we were thinking setting up a mutual fund or some sort of fund, like a hedge fund or mutual fund. Or talking to accountants and lawyers, they tell you need a security act, exchange commission. You need $1 million to get this license, and I'm glad you said that. So we have to just do it our own way, but we have to just be creative with it, basically.
Right. And like I say, trust is the base, right? Yeah. Trust is the base. And so, again, with the cabin project is kind of like a Susu in that I set an amount, a minimum amount of $500, and then you could buy multiple units of that at $500 to be able to come in. And I'm tracking, okay, somebody bought 3. Somebody could only afford 1. I had one woman who couldn't even afford the one at one shot. She took, I think, about 6 months and paid into it. And now she's got 1 unit. And so we designed, we did think about that. Do we have to go through the Ontario Securities Commission, blah, blah, blah. We talked to legal. All we need to do is a simple loan agreement between us and the folks, and we tell them how much we're going to pay them back after the term, which is 5-year terms. So we have that money for 5 years. In that 5 years' time, we're saying the other side of it is the sweat equity piece. So we have the buildings to put up. Come and help us put it up. Once the buildings are up, once we have products to market, you need to help us with because that's how the money is going to flow back in. And so then we're kind of creating that collective business opportunity, that cooperative opportunity. And like I say, for us, the aim is twofold. Yes, money making is important. We're not people who are against money, but it is not the primary driver or focus. And I think that's where things fall off the rails, because people start to believe that we can move forward as an individual and become somehow rich when the rest of our community, no. And one other thing I wanted to say, because you mentioned about other communities and how they have it together and so on. You know what? When I can't remember where I was working, but I found out that in China, for example, there were 14 Canadian embassies. And at the time, on the entire continent of Africa, there were 4. So there is a fast track. Okay. Plus then, to come from Asia, you had to have $100,000 and a business that you're going to start, right? Okay. But if you're coming from, how we came from Africa and the Caribbean was not like that, right? And when you look at the types of jobs and the types of opportunities that are open to us, when you look at the process of streaming in the schools, that concept of streaming us into lower economic opportunities, that's something that happens at every chair. It's an institutional, systemic, all those names. It's arranged that way. So nobody is smarter than us or better than us or more strategic than us or any of those things. Those are all the lies told to justify our relative position. But you look at when we are in our own countries, unhindered by colonialism, unhindered by those things, we're prime ministers, we're corporation heads, we're principals of schools and teachers. We run things. Yes. So why can't we run things anywhere? Right? Exactly. Anyway, so that's my feeling about that.
Yeah, totally.
We're going to also open it up for anyone else who has any questions or would like to give comment to the conversation so far.
Hi, everybody. It's Charmaine.
Hello.
Hey, just a quick one. I came in late, so I'm glad I did. I'm on a work project, so I'm taking a break, and I'm glad I caught it. What you said about the susu and the different ways, I'm so happy to hear that. I'm running one. It's a very small one, but with COVID and everything, in fact, the next round is about to start, and people have dropped out because they're saying, oh, I can't afford it. So now I'm thinking, why not have them come in with as little as $25? And we perhaps can go for a longer period. And that way they still have something coming in, because if they don't have the means to, put that much in anymore, why should they pull it out? So I'm happy I heard that point, because I'm accustomed to just having that set amount and then you get paid out that set amount, that sort of thing. So seeing that you can kind of mix it up and make it sort of unique to the type of situation members are facing. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, the other way that you can do it is split the hand so that people can take half or a quarter and whatever. They come in how they can. But I think, again, the driving force is that we're doing something together. We're supporting each other. We're not leaving each other to languish out there financially, because, that's the spirit with which I learned about this. As a matter of fact, I know that even just to come to this country, it was $600 that my mom arrived here with, and that was all raised from members of the community putting together. And I remember hearing that Berry Gordy started Motown Records with money from the women on his mother's block, pooling together their resources to give him the money that he needed to start that business. So this idea that it has to be done a certain way or that we're not accustomed doing this as a people is completely false, and it's certainly not illegal at all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charmaine. Does anybody else have any questions?
I do have a question.
Oh, okay, brother.
Just to follow up on what's being discussed here, like it's all great points being made, and I just have a suggestion to throw out there. Will it be? I know we're in changing world, like different times now, where there are different ways that money can be made. Is it possible if we were to do something similar alongside of the SUSU, where we collect, each person puts a certain amount? Let's say if it's going to be all the members of the group that's actually part of the peace Pomoja. If let's say we are putting in $25 SUSU collection and put that into either Ethereum or Bitcoin cryptocurrency, which is now blowing up. This is something that can triple our money for us in ways that we won't even, we can't even imagine. So if we're collecting that money, each time that money is collected, instead of having a fiat currency sitting in the bank, not really collecting much of any interest, we can just directly dump that money into, and we can keep track of who is contributing, who's part of the membership, and that money just goes in there. When it goes in, we can pick, let's say, 5-year term. We'll look to see where the value of our Bitcoin has brought us. And, if we choose to take the money out or leave a portion or take a portion and then reinvest, buy land and do whatever with it, that money will grow so much more than we can ever imagine.
I think that's a great suggestion. I think even now, like the last couple of months, we've been more so leaning towards us as a collective having various investment options for the membership. So that is also a very great idea that we can even discuss at our next meeting as well, because that is a good idea.
And definitely Bitcoin is like definitely one of them. Like you rightly said, fiat currencies are like going down, because of all the excessive printing that the governments are doing. So, it's losing value, right? So for sure, yeah.
I like that idea.
We'll definitely discuss it next meeting.
And may I add to that, okay, so what we have to be careful of is thinking of making money as the goal. So I think that is a great idea. There's been discussion around having an Adinkra farm cryptocurrency, and then some of the rules changed, but most definitely, that is a really great way to use the SUSU. But then once you put it into a vehicle together that takes you further financially, what are you going to do with that money to create in relation to the struggle of our people? Okay, because we know there are lots of personally wealthy people out there. So sure, we can take a little bit and live better, right? And raise the standard of living for some of our individuals. But then what are we together putting back into the collective? So, I think we have enough scholarship funds and we could never have enough of those. But, maybe there's something else that we can do to help start businesses, or to look at microloans, or to look at something else that really is contributing. The other thing that is part of the vision here is the idea of sustainability. Because if you experience the blackout, you know that if power goes, what are we doing, right? Then you experience that we all just went through the experience of these supermarket shelves being empty. And, it was a scary day when I was relieved to get an email from Galen Weston saying that the shelves will be stocked. And at first I was, whew, that's good. I can feed my family. Then I was thinking, I'm dependent on Galen Weston to feed my family. That's a scary thought. Like we are deep in. So independence, sustainability, we got to work on those things. Anyway, and so to me, if we do something like that and we make lots of money, it isn't to buy a Ferrari.
Yes.
I have things.
And
not at all. Not at all.
And to add to that,
would be nowhere on that list.
All right. All right, Brother P. I like that.
And to add to that, that's one of the reasons why we are actually in Africa at the moment. We've been, looking at different options, farming, even real estate here is, is booming. We're in Nigeria currently, in Lagos specifically, and in Lagos, there are over like 40 million people, and it's like the smallest state in the country. These people need a place to sleep. They need to eat. So I mean, then there's a lot of demand for housing and food here too. So so many opportunities. Yvonne, you wanted to say something?
I see Yvonne Brown has a hand
Thank you.
up. Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Greetings, sis. Thank you so much for joining us. I think so. I put my hand up before you commented on the previous on Brother P's comment, which is so you basically said what I was going to say, which is it's fantastic to pool resources together and look at fiat currency because of quantitative easing. We know that it's fiat currency is done. But there are also currencies, cryptocurrencies that are created by our own people that we need to look at as well. So, those are things too, not always looking at what they've given us, but look at what we are doing ourselves. In Africa, there's a number of different currencies that we've created that has been created by our community, by Blacks. So we can look into all of that. But the whole point of it is once we start making some gains, what is the plan? And Akin mentioned some of the things, which is looking at how will we sustain ourselves in the new reset. And we know that things are going to be very different very soon. So how will we feed ourselves? How will we house ourselves? Not just as individuals, but as communities. And so I think a majority of us, I would say, if not all of us, joined Pamoja from their initial call out, which is building a community for us, by us, to take care of us. And included in that is not just housing, real estate, but it's the food, the farming, all the different things that goes into healthcare, exactly, that goes into community building. So I just wanted to add to that comment.
No, that's so thankful that you said that. And I brought up the healthcare because one of the things that, again, another realization is how badly we are eating and how it affects our health. And we see that we're having a disproportionate impact with COVID. It's not only, it is the economics, but the economics that leads us to buy the highly processed, very inexpensive foods that are marketed directly to us. I mean, it's not as bad as if many of you may have visited the States and they call them food deserts or something like that, where you would go and you can't get a fruit, but you can get like a fruity, sugary something that it has a hint of the taste of a fruit, right? So anyway, so many fronts on which we could do this work.
All right.
Sorry, I'll jump in. Sorry, I'll just jump in quickly. One of the things that I mentioned, I noticed is that, or I learned, is that a lot of our, I would say previous generation, so I'm talking like my mom's generation, that came here in the 60s and 70s, a lot of the businesses, homes, as Sister Ginelle mentioned, that they currently have or have passed on to the next generation, they gain those through susus and partners and all these different ways. And our next generation, so my children and my grandchildren, they may lose that if we don't teach it, explain it, and continue that tradition. We can't, someone told me, she might even be, Sister Ucha, she might even be on the call, I'm not sure, but she once said to me that, how can we depend on a system created to destroy us, to build us? The system was created to destroy us, but we are depending on it to build us. And we have to create our own. And I just want to throw that out there. All right, I'll done talk now. So.
Well said. Well said. There's a question in the chat. Is there any books, or are there any books on the topic of Susu?
Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of academic work. You could look at Professor Caroline Hossein and Jessica Nembard, Dr. Jessica Nembard from the U.S. They do a lot of work, not just on the Susu, but on this concept of collective economics that's a bit broader than the Susu. And it covers things like the Susu, but some of the many different, the range of things. I mean, traditionally, there wasn't such a thing as cryptocurrency and so on, but there were things like collective land ownership, right? And so you might want to check out their work. And if you do a Google search on rotating savings and credit associations, that's a form of this kind of collective economics or cooperative economics, or pooling resources. I remember doing some research myself and finding that in almost every culture, other than there's only one culture that doesn't have multiple ways that people pool resources to help others in the community. And so the purpose of pooling resources is about that. The other very interesting research, I don't know if many of you may know about this place called Mondragon in Spain, and it's worth looking up. And there are some interesting YouTube videos on it. But essentially, this was a little village in Spain in the mountains that was economically not going anywhere back in the 1930s, I think it was. And, well, I won't tell you the story, but now they produce, they have zero unemployment, and they're an economically viable community. I haven't seen any stats on what has happened since COVID, but they manufacture their own food, they build their own homes, they started doing international trade and so it's now a multinational kind of company that the whole village runs, the whole community runs, and everyone has a guaranteed part and place in that community. So that's Mondragon. So it's like M-O-N and then dragon. Yeah. So that's how it is.
Amazing. And that's what Pamoja is all about. Us, doing togetherness. That's what it's about. Nine Eternal, you have a question?
Yeah, good night, everyone. My question to you would be like, what would you suggest beyond cryptocurrency? Because we understand probably cryptocurrency is on its own grid. So if all that stuff gets knocked out, we got to think beyond that, how we would survive. So what would be your suggestion on that?
Personally, I don't know enough about cryptocurrency to comment intelligently about it, but I would say that the smartest thing is that we need to also keep cash flowing, because again, if everything gets digital, we still need to have the cookie jar and money there. And so we have to have ways that we're working with several different ways of economic exchange. And then also something I want to bring in with the idea of the sweat equity is, another sort of philosophical pillar is wanting to say at the end of the day, I have done more to help people in our community just to help them than I did to make money, right? And so it kind of flips the script from what's out there right now in terms of capitalism, because we always think that the only way to survive is it has to be making money. And so why are you doing it if it's not making you money? Well, I'm questioning, why am I doing it if it's not improving the lives of the people in my community? And that's a different question and a different driver. And I think we need those because we'll have different ways of thinking. I'll tell you one other exciting project. So I don't know if you've had a chance to see this documentary that's called Dead White Man's Clothes. And you'll find it on YouTube. Yeah, Dead White Man's Clothes. And it's about the whole donation clothing industry and the idea that these textiles are being sent to countries, our used clothing from the so-called first world. And it's creating an environmental disaster. So I'm partnering with Pearl Sung from Zenopia Designs, and we look at how can we repurpose our clothing once we either grow out of it and so on. So there's many different ways that you can think about alternative economies. So I'll still have clothing, but I don't need money to get it necessarily. If I have a sewing machine, or if my girlfriend and I, or a group of women come together and, that top that doesn't fit you anymore goes nicely with let's see what we can make in terms of a new outfit that goes together. And some of the things are very beautiful, creative, some of them it's a fail, you wouldn't want to wear those things, but that's the creative process. And like I say, we have to think about, we have to think outside of the idea that money is the only currency.
Money is just a tool, like you said. So, very powerful.
I'm just looking in the chat. Does anyone have any more questions?
Yvonne wants to say something.
Oh, Yvonne, your hand's up.
Me again. As I think I put it in the chat, but one of the things that we I'll say my girls and I, we were talking about it not too long ago, that at some point we may get back to a stage where we need to exchange, a bag of rice for, some sugar, or, that whole, common, as Sister Ginelle put, trade, maybe you can, fix my plumbing and I give you some lentil beans, or, those type of things. There's so many ways that we need to think about how we work together to help and take care of everyone.
Talking about the barter system.
The barter system. That's what I was trying to find the word. Thank you. The barter system. And if we're, as Pomoja, talking about building a community, we don't always have to, as Sister Ginelle said, everything doesn't have to be about exchange of currency. It can be, all right, come in. There's an organization that actually does that very successfully, Habitat for Humanity. Where they help you build a home, and I think Daniel's is another builder that you come in and they helped you with the down payment, I think, of how it works. They help you with the down payment, and then you come and put in some sweat equity into building the home, and things like that. So there's lots of modeling that we can look at to really help our community going forward.
I would like to tap off, continue off of what you just discussed here. Like, in terms of the barter system, I mean, this is something that we as a community, have really lost touch in, because we're never really taught, we were never raised on that system. Our, older great grandparents and stuff, lived on a system such as this. and they learn. And, you know, that's how communities survive, because not everyone knew a certain skill. Someone knows a certain skill. Someone might have a farm. They, like, you know, they might need laborers. And so everyone helps out with what you're able to do. But unfortunately, the society we live in, we've been taught to only rely on the system. We're always relying on grocery stores to always be there for whenever we need to go and purchase. Now, like, I mean, I think COVID has opened, like, you know, woken a lot of people up to what we could possibly face. And so we really have to rethink our whole lifestyle and, you know, how we will survive if and when we ever get to a point where, you know, what we're used to is no longer there. And so in terms of even having to learn and to be able to, you know, do your own gardening, where the food comes from, like, you know, backyard gardening, like, you know, what food can you grow? Setting up greenhouses that you'd be able to grow food during the winter. These are all skills that, like, you know, should be taught in the schools. But unfortunately, the system does not want a society or people that can be self-sufficient, that know how to basically fend for themselves. And that's where we've lost so much of that knowledge, because if the system collapses today, majority of our people wouldn't know how to survive. They wouldn't know where the next food will be coming from.
Yeah.
And so,
have you, Brother P, have you heard about the Makers movement?
Pardon me?
Makers movement.
No, I haven't.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Please elaborate on it a bit.
So this is along the lines of what you're saying. You know, we come to the realization that we have been well-trained consumers, right? And the Makers movement arose I started hearing about it only a couple of years ago. I'm sure it's been going on before I heard about it, but this is to learn to make stuff, and make it ourselves and create the things that we need from scratch, and learning how to do that. So how do you put together a computer? Learning how to do that, having that know-how in our community. How do you, sew? How do you cook something? How do you grow food? How do you build a house? And all of that sort of stuff. Things using our hands, using our resources to make. So I'm suggesting that with that idea as a kernel of thought, that what about if we looked at the economic prosperity and sustainability of our community being in what we know how to do for ourselves, as opposed to the trained consumer culture that we have been trained to participate in. So, you know, it's a very... You know what? I was working for Warden Woods Community Center for many years, and I had occasion to visit the Mennonite community in Kitchener. And now I'm not advocating for this, but they stopped their children going to school at grade 8. And they've made a decision, you know, where technology stops, and they learn to build their own houses, to put, right, to create their own food, and they have to have a certain amount of know-how and self-sufficiency. So I'm saying, if we borrowed from that with the maker tradition, with getting to our own, we've been conditioned to think of putting your hands in the soil. I heard I was at the Food Sovereignty Conference last year, and they called the land is the scene of the crime for many of us, because that's where we were, you know, made to toil. And if we can get over that trauma and understand the power of being able to create our own food, decide and feed ourselves our ancestral food, instead of these contorted versions of, you know, seedless, like If you have a seedless watermelon, how do you create another watermelon, right?
Oh yes.
And then,
Boneless chicken.
and then I've also learned that watermelon is actually an ancestral food to us. Very nutritious, very good for us. But all of the lore and so on is against us having watermelon.
And they put a negative connotation to it. The watermelon,
just so many things. Right? I remember growing up, saving the margarine container to use it for something else was thought to be, right. Ghetto. What? You can't afford to get
every
another
black house is
container?
like that.
But then that's what we did. Like my grandmother would be horrified about, what, you're throwing away a bottle? We could use that for something. Anyway.
Recycle,
So true.
And everything you discussed there, I have been I just recently moved out of the city, and I'm north about an hour and 45 minutes north of, I'm in Markdale area. And so I moved to Markdale, and then I'm learning of all the Black history from Markdale, Flesherton, all the areas, Priceville, and all the Black history, because all the Underground Railroad came through there before they went to Collinwood and Owen Sound. All those areas are where all the Black slaves actually lived and settled in. And so I'm looking at it now, I'm like, wow, I moved my family to land that was formerly slave. My ancestors actually lived off of this land as well. And it's amazing because I'm building, I've gotten to know a lot of people in the community, and a lot of Black people within the area who own a lot of land as well, who are starting to, build and starting our own. So we have our own small little, since I moved here less than 6 months ago, or about 6 months now, we're a whole bunch of Black people are just starting to set up, and we are networking because everyone has their own little farming that they're doing, and, we get to share and help each other out. So it's definitely, we have to change our standard of living and what we are used to and we've been taught, so we can, survive the next coming,
Yeah. Right. Alternative ways to gain, you see, because it isn't that we want to become an economic power. We want to have power over our own destiny. That's more important. And if that comes through money, well, that's one thing. But I think the path to it is through self-sustaining activity, and money, a tool to get us to that self-sustaining activity, to building the trust back, to really loving ourselves and appreciating our gifts, our creativity, our traditions, respecting them. That to me is so much more valuable because, like I say, it's empty to have this culture of just having a big house and having fancy clothes that feed someone else's children. No, we don't do that. We don't want to do that.
So true and well said. I think one of the things that we definitely have to replay in our minds constantly is that we need to reconnect to our African identity in order to reclaim its importance to who we are, to where we're going. It's so critical. So I think that's something that I definitely will take from what you said. Of course, there's many more things that you said that we can glean from, but definitely that's where it starts, because that's where our source really is.
The thing is, for me, one of the things, being here in Africa now, one of the things that that I regret more than anything else is my time in Canada. And, I remember paying utility bills for $500 for just water, or electrical bill for $600. And being here in Africa, you can buy land for $100. And I'm like, for a month, I'm paying these people like $600 just to use water, but here I can buy land, you know. So it's just a different perspective
Or
to
even
life.
our clothing,
And
our car
yeah,
payments.
like,
If we downsize, we can
and
invest in
yeah, things that we wasted money on,
yeah.
you can do so much more here. Like you can help people, you can, man, it's just
And
honestly.
even where
That's
we
the definition of success.
yeah.
Yes, sorry.
No, I was gonna say even where we are now, like it's a huge place with tons of houses, and it's the Chinese who actually own all of the land here. Like the developer is Chinese, and I mean this is something that you do see around. And they own
In
a
partnership with a
lot
Nigerian.
acre. Well, yeah, in partnership with a Nigerian, but that's the point. We have to partner with ourselves so that we can once again reclaim what belongs rightfully to us, right? So it's so important for us to really have that deep in our hearts and let that drive us. Like you said, it's not just about the money, because money comes and money goes. It does. We all have experienced that. You have $1,000 today, next week it's gone. You know what I mean? So if we take it from the perspective of, you know what, we are building our community. This is our purpose. This is what's driving us.
Exactly.
Then we now have something.
And if you understand the amount of money that you've wasted doing things that are not really relevant to you, and then you understand what you can actually do with the resources you have at your disposal, then you appreciate what you have even more, right? And being here in Africa, that's it for me. I'm just like so humble and just appreciating every moment. I'm like, I can't believe I wasted money doing silly things in Canada, like going to the mall and buying clothes and things like that, and shopping. And like, you can do so much here. You can have a farm, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. And here's what the key thing that you said: using your resources wisely. You didn't say money, right? And that's it. We have to expand the definition of success, and we have to expand our idea of what it takes, because what the great sort of play in our minds has been that money is key, money is everything, like, money. And that's just a facade, that's a fakeness, because money is simply one of the resources that we can use to achieve another goal. We have to figure out what is that goal. And money is not the goal, right? And I will borrow because I didn't learn this from African philosophy. I learned this from listening to the indigenous people of Turtle Island, right? So respectfully, I will borrow that. They think in terms of 7 generations. 7 generations from now. And I remember, well, actually before I had heard that, in my younger days when I fancied myself a poet, I wrote a poem called 4 Generations. And what it was my consciousness about the 4 generations of women that I knew in my family, on my mother's line in particular, because I had met my great-great-grandmother. And I was very young, and I always thought to myself, I wish I had asked her a whole bunch of questions. But what the poem was about was realizing that what I am manifesting, right, is the dreams and the ideation of 4 generations of women that I can touch and feel and feel that physical connection to. But if I was to write that poem today, I would go back even further, right? But the part of the reason why I stopped there was because I didn't have that sense of the connection to the continent at the time. I was feeling that had been severed. And so if I looked only 4 generations back, I could know what those ancestors were likely doing and thinking. And their quest for survival under that system of the transatlantic slave trade would have been for one day to have their great-great-great-great-granddaughter doing something. And so I felt that responsibility about what I'm doing in this world that represents their dream. And so the indigenous people take that the other way and say, look, where you're standing now, the decisions you're making are for the generations of the future. And so, you know, taking those two concepts together, it's a very Sankofa moment because, you know, I'm thinking of it as looking back and having that responsibility to represent their dreams accurately or in the best way possible with whatever they might inspire me to do. And then the other thought is about looking to the future.
Wow, amazing. Again, so powerful.
I know.
But, you know, ultimately, I think the question we all have to ask ourselves is this. You know, if Walmart should shut down now, if, you know, you get laid off at work, or if something happens, you know, to your business, like, can you take care of yourself? Can you feed yourself? Can you take care of your family? You know, and even what are you doing for the future? Like for the generations to come, like your children's children. What plans do you have for them? And how are you representing your ancestors? Right. So all in all, very powerful, really.
And I think other than, you know, of course, the creator, we will only have really ourselves, right? We have to, and so we have to form relationships versus every man being an island, everyone having their own whatever 6-figure job, and like, you know, this separation that has been created over years of maybe hurt feelings, mistrusts, rumors, you know, stigmas,
lies,
all of that, you know.
Yeah.
So we have to remember that we have to be on each other's own team or our own teams, right?
Which
you know
all boils down to the trust.
Exactly.
So
I think this conversation, I didn't think this conversation was gonna go this way. I didn't really come in with too many expectations,
but you know,
but I'm glad it did, because I think we got to develop our roots a lot better. We're nourishing those roots that we're gonna eventually be standing on, right?
But for you know, for our group, for sure, for Pamoja, I wouldn't say we have trust issues per se. You know, because I mean, collectively in like 9 weeks or so, we were able to raise like 180,000. I know it's not about the money, the figure, and so on, but you know, for you to get Black folks to come together. And for us to raise 180,000, I know definitely trust is not an issue that we have. You know, but from the feedback that I've received so far from people is, you know, a lot of people want to get involved, but you know, the minimum requirements that we put in place at that time was like $5,000 per person. So it was really difficult for some people to participate. But you know. And I've been researching the, you know, Susu idea and discussing with the board as well on how to set up like a fund. So really, really nice talking to you this evening. And, you know, thank you so much for.
It reaffirms the direction. And that's why I said I didn't think it was going to go this way, but it's reaffirming the direction that we had been discussing. You know,
because we have the resources going to, you know, a centralized place anyways. You know, and everyone gets like notifications and stuff. So so really, really good discussion this evening.
Thank you so much for being here with us. We really, really appreciate you. Thank you for all you're doing for our community, for how much you're educating us and passing on all the knowledge that you have accumulated over your years. Thank you to your husband as well and to your family. I know it's not easy, you know, being a pioneer, but we really, really, really celebrate you for that. Thank you so much, Ginelle.
Well, it'd be nice if Pamoja is able to set up some sort of a and meet and greet in person at the farm, and get to explore it.
I know.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Yes. Absolutely. You can come up. There's still time before it gets deathly cold. We had at least, I would say, 18 people here today, and it was a bright, sunny fall day, so it was cool. But I also cook for people when they come.
Oh
And
man,
she's
too bad
an
we can go.
amazing
I
cook.
know.
Can I
Oh,
throw in
wow.
there? She's an amazing cook. So y'all need to taste her hand. Amazing.
Yvonne, looks like we're gonna be making the trip.
I know.
Yvonne, we're gonna have to set this up before winter comes.
Yes, it would be my pleasure. Yeah, and if you don't make it before winter, well, you can come in the winter too, and just bring your snowshoes, and then we can always also do it in the spring. So the invitation is open. Consider yourself invited.
Nice.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And guys, there's a note from Sister Ginelle that the land across from her farm is for sale. So put that on the list of inquiries.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
I'm looking for neighbors.
Yes.
How big is it?
For that land? How big is it?
Yeah.
36 acres.
Oh,
36
nice.
acres. But the people that moved in about, they just bought the property maybe 3 years ago, and they have invested quite a bit in rebuilding the house that was there. It was a little house there. They've invested in that. You know what? I know we're wrapping up, but I'll tell you what we've seen around here. So just on the street, remember I said we're about a kilometer from that street where the gentleman turned the wrong way. If he had gone the other way, about half a kilometer down, we noted that someone bought a piece of land, put a probably $60,000 trailer on it, and lived in that for at least 4 years. Then we saw a foundation being poured. Then within a year, the house was framed and the roof was up. And then over the next year, slowly we saw windows going in and, all of that kind of stuff, finishing the house. And now a beautiful house sits on that spot. I suppose he sold the trailer or got rid of the trailer. But this is it started me thinking, suppose we did something like that, because housing in Toronto is crazy. I don't know how much it is now, but there are prefab homes that you can purchase, and they were, at the time that I looked at it, between $150,000 and $200,000 for a prefab home. So if you get the land, you're able to live essentially, rent-free. But because you can, I also have known someone who bought a used trailer for under $5,000. And, you just have to put the propane and so on to live in it. But if you live in a trailer on your own land for a bit, and then you can, build your own house or buy a prefab home, I think that's a path to self-sustainability and living mortgage-free on your own land, and we can replicate that. Anyway, so that's an aside. But, yeah, the property's for sale. One down the street from here sold, our neighbors about 3 houses down sold for $1.4 million. And I can tell you that in what year did we buy this farm? 2009 we bought this farm for, it was $599.99. We paid $460,000 for 42 acres and this farm. And so, I'm just encouraging people to get out there and look and see. Everything's gone up, but at this point, by pooling resources, you can buy, properties. And I know there's another lady who used to be farming here with us cooperatively. She bought a house in Chatsworth, and I think she was paying $800,000 for it. But it's a gorgeous home. I can't tell you how many acres that sits on. But again, she's doing something called the Sankofa Moon Village, and it's another sort of version of cooperative living.
You said
I'll
Chatsworth?
stop.
That's about 15 minutes away from where I am in Markdale.
Okay. Yeah,
Is she a black lady within the community?
Yes. Yeah, she is. Her name is Amai Kuda. We met because both of our children were.
If you can send me her info, I will like to get in touch with her because she's definitely my neighbor, like within 15 minutes. So I'd like to get in touch with everyone that I know within the area, and so we can build our own community. So it'd be nice to get in touch with her. So please, if you don't mind leaving your.
I'll put my email in the chat.
Okay, sure. And then I will send you an email, and then you can send me that info. Thank you.
Okay.
Great. So Ginelle, quick question. So with the land, right? I'm guessing it's zoned for farming, right?
My own, yeah. Mm-hmm. Rural.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the one for sale too is probably zoned for agriculture, so no?
Yeah. You see, some of them along here are both a combination of rural residential, but yeah,
okay, perfect.
It is.
So with that, do you know how many trailer homes we can put on a land that is zoned agriculture? Sorry?
Yeah. So you guys are recording, so I'm not going to answer that question.
Okay, sure. All right. I understand. Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, great. We'll touch base after. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Great.
So Ginelle, that's been the challenge that, as you know, zoning for some of the things that we've talked about, but I also know that there are ways around it. Out in your area, do you know who the zoning officers are? Like, do you have any connection with the zoning office?
So right now we are working with a planner to address some of the zoning issues that we've run into. Because you see, my suspicion is that because we're very close to like Wasaga Beach and the sort of resort areas, they don't really want people to get into competing sorts of businesses that would see people having a place to stay and things like that, right? But you are allowed to have a farm accessory building to house people who are farm workers on your farm, right? So that's really what we're pursuing right now. With the county. I mean, and it's Simcoe County for here. Mm-hmm.
For 42 acres, okay. 42 acres, you will need at least 400 farmers. Those are all our members in Pamoja.
Technicalities.
Exactly.
I won't comment on those technical points right now.
Brother Pete, you have to memorize your employee number, farm, and wear your badge.
Indeed.
Yes.
So, one last thing, Ginelle, we didn't really we didn't do a proper intro to what your recent promotion, I guess, or position.
Yeah, the recent big deal that they're making.
Yes, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. So we would like.
Yeah. I'm very conscious of not letting people off the hook just because they've hired a Black person. It doesn't absolve the years of statistics that show how Black and Indigenous people have been mistreated by the children's aid system. So with the role that I'm playing as the so-called first Black CEO of the CAS in Ontario, is that I don't mind saying that because I think it's important for them to hear that too, that in 2021, you are hiring the first Black CEO to run a CAS. And, you know, to quote Chris Rock, we're not surprised by that as Black people, that a Black person can do that, because you're the one who had an idea that somehow we were incapable. So this is an important first for you for that reason. For us, it's an important first to note, just because I think we all need to watch what's happening, because a person can get eaten alive in this position. So I'm informing my community because I need y'all to be there with me in spirit,
Absolutely.
not, you know, necessarily physically. Yeah, because I know, you know, you're kind of going into where a lot of the mischief has been done for our in our community, and I've met some wonderful people there who are totally oblivious to those, because that's how systemic racism works, right? Anyway, so yes, it is. I don't consider that a particular accomplishment, because I know at least 1,000 people who should be the CEO of something, but they're not, because we're being held back from those positions. So it's. I didn't accomplish anything. They actually did what they should be doing, hiring a skilled person to do the job. So I emphasize it not in our community, but you know what I'm saying? I'm saying it is important for our community, but I'm not kind of having an ego issue with being the first Black, and I'm ready to leave at any time, because my integrity will not be questioned or compromised. So thank you for that.
Amen.
And thank you for giving me the opportunity to say that.
Amen.
Yeah.
So good. So, all right. With that being said, mic drop. We're going to close out. That was great.
Not to be ungrateful. Not to be ungrateful.
No, but yeah, I hear you, and stand your ground. And we're here supporting you and cheering you on.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we're going to just say good night to everyone. Thank you so much again, Ginelle.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining and for your input. We'll definitely connect back again. Next Sunday, we'll have an intimate chat about where we're going with Pamoja and some of the new ideas that we have. We'll send out the information for that by tomorrow. And then also, we'd like to invite you guys to the next month, November's end of month conversation. So you guys will hear from us with that and topics and the speaker as well. All right. Thanks, everyone. And take care.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Beautiful presentation. Good night. Thank you.
Good night.